Hello, Booktube, and this is part 2 of my Q&A for 500 subscribers. Next question, if I get this correct, yeah, is J.E. Cowie? Or Crow? Sorry, my eyesight is a bit blurred, and it's small. Crow, sorry. J.E. Crow. Congratulations on 500 subscribers. Were you a book fan even as a child? Do you have any favorite childhood memories of books, favorite author, or stories? I was, but not probably as much as you would think looking around me here now. I liked books, and I really liked, like at the time I was interested in history, but I also read fiction as well a little bit. Farley Mowat was one that I did read and enjoyed. He was a Canadian writer, but it was books, sort of history, and I remember seeing in the library, um, and I think at that time, or it might have been later, but I think at that time in the 70s, my dad had a couple of the Time Life sets of books, which I liked because, again, I wasn't as big of a reader as a child as I came to later, so I liked books with photos and pictures, but it was usually nonfiction ones. And that's where in the library I discovered, Egypt and other places, because I remember some National Geographic. I think they were National Geographic books and other books about the ancient world. Um, so that's sort of my childhood memories of books, more than anything else. And favorite author, I would say, yeah, Farley Mowat is the one that jumps out. I can't really think of too much other ones. I enjoyed reading, science fiction a little bit at the time too, but they weren't. It wasn't as if it wasn't until sort of the early mid '80s that I would say that I really became bookish, and I did a tag. I called it lost books, and I think that's around the time, somewhere around the first 3 4 years of the 1980s, that I actually was hooked. And it was partially because all of a sudden I'm in a city, Toronto, where I've got money and bookshops galore and everything under the sun that I could ever want. Um, Rizzo, I think that is Riz and then a zero. Rizzo uh, says, "Congrats, thank you. Do you have any favorite bookshops, past or present?" Oh, I was gonna look something up on this. I should have. Yes, there was, like, in Toronto, down Queen Street. There was Queen Street East, I think it was. Yeah, no, Queen Street West. Sorry. There was just dozens. There was like Abelard Books. There was a Village Bookshop. There were just a number of books, and there was a science fiction bookshop there. Bacca book. I think it was Bacca. I think it was called Bacca Books, and that's where I started getting more of the, going back to question from the other video of science fiction magazines, digests. But yeah, and then I remember, as I traveled other places, like when I had my bookshop, I traveled into the U.S. I don't remember names, but I remember finding, sort of in the Midwest, these massive barns full of books, that you could have spent days there going through things, and I was amazed at how much, because I was selling a lot of archaeology books at the time too, and the amount of stuff that I found in the where I never would have expected it, and got good deals for it, because probably I'd be the only person in years that would come through that'd be interested in them. Um, Here in the UK, Well, there was other ones. There was ones in New England. There was, like, yeah, it just like, converted barns into bookshops. Can't quite remember the names of them. Uh, and in the UK here, I haven't gone around as much as I'd like to have to bookshops, but I remember a trip up to York, and there was a number of really good bookshops there. My local bookshop here, Eagle Bookshop, is really good. It's serves most for me for a lot. But yeah, and there in Ontario, there was way up north, northern Ontario. I think it was past Thunder Bay. There was this huge building of books, and been to it a few times, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's way in it's quite far in northern Ontario, and it was a bookshop that was there, and I got such great books out of there. I got the study of history by Toynbee. I was missing volume one, so I hummed and hawed, and on the second visit I bought it. It was only, I think, $50, um, and just other sets of books and stuff that um, a lot of things that I never really saw other places as years went by, and it was so great. But yeah, there are, and then when I was in New York City, I really liked Strand Bookshop, and there's a few others there as well that you had to. And I don't remember the names of them, but you had the buzz to get in. You almost had to show your bank account information in order to get through the door. Um, Next question, James Holder. Congrats again on reaching 500. Thank you, James. About how many books do you have in your collection? I don't know exactly, but I must have very close, if not over, 4,000 books. And this is in a not a huge room, but I have maxed out the space, like literally floor to ceiling, and as you can see behind me here, it's a large space, but it's small now because of the books. So I would say, yeah, close to, if not tipping 4,000. Patrick Worthington, and he says, congratulations, well deserved for some pretty great content. Thank you, Patrick. And inspiring words. How long were you watching Booktube before deciding to do your own channel? Excuse me. Trying to think. Well, I know when I started, and I just have to remember when that is. Um, I got quite ill with cellulitis in my leg. I was in the hospital all of September, and I think that's 3 years ago now. I think it's 3 years. Yeah, I think it's 3 years ago now. Uh, and and then I was released. I was all of September. Then I was released, but I still was at home. I was sort of at hospital at home, it was called, and I had nurses coming in every day to give me injections of antibiotics, a number of injections, and cleaning my leg, and making sure I was okay. So I had a lot of time on my hands, and I started looking for, like, I think it started because I was reading some essays of Umberto Eco, um, and I was curious because like there was mention about his huge library, so I got on YouTube and typed in Umberto Eco's library, and there's a few videos, one where he's walking through, and then there's some interviews, so I watched. But along with that, the library came up, other people's like library tours, so I started watching some of these and discovered something called Booktube, which I didn't know existed at that time. And I found most of it were, teens, early 20s, And then slowly I started finding, people that collected, not just young adult books. And so so we're talking, I think, a little over 3 years ago, that I first started watching, and then it would have been, well, in January. I was thinking about it probably for about 6 months before I actually plunged into it, and that was I did that in late January of this year. I started the Booktube channel. I just thought, well, what the heck? I had time off in January. It's something that I usually do. I take I used to. I don't know if I'll continue a tradition, but it was I for many years I've been taking sort of January off to do some writing and other reading specific things. And I used the last week, I think, of this just doing a whole bunch of Booktube videos. So so whatever, 2 and a bit years before I actually plunged into it. And there's actually one other question here. It's why did I move to the UK? Wow, it's a bit secretive there. But what I can tell you is that I had a bookshop in Canada. I had it for 10 years, from about 1995 to 2005, give or take. And it started out solely catalog based and conferences, doing archaeology books, because that's what I had. So I used a lot of my own stock as seed stock for that aspect and going to the conferences, and a lot of my history books. And I sort of looked at it as scholarly and academic books, not textbook. And that's the one thing I had to explain to some people that didn't know. I didn't mean textbooks. I meant, scholarly books, in the sense of that were sort of well-written history books, general history, all the way to academic, like archaeological reports, that type of thing. So, and I eventually opened up a bookshop. Um, there was a couple things that sort of caused problems with the bookshop. Like, for some reason, let's back up a little bit. Prior to opening the bookshop, I was running out of a 3-bedroom apartment that I had, and every room was full of books. I had literally tens of thousands of books at that point, and then I had storage space as well with many more books in. And I had a pretty good trade with the universities that were around there, or a number of people out there, students and everything, but I were sort of, appointment only. I turned what was my living room into sort of a showroom for books. And I was buying and selling a lot of remainders at the time, academic remainders, scholarly history remainders, archaeology. And so I'd have people come in and look at what I just got, or to pick up. They'd make an order. I'd say, this is a list of books I'll be getting these. Do you want any? So forth. And so I had a pretty good trade doing that. People coming in and doing this. But as soon as I opened up my bookshop, they stopped coming. They stopped buying for some reason. And I was open. I closed. Mondays was the only day that I closed. I was open, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And it didn't quite take off as an open shop for some reason. And I was fairly close to the universities as well. Not on the main street, but I figured, well, my books are not what, people walking down the street and go, oh, there's a bookshop, let's go in and take a look. They'd probably be disappointed. I didn't have, the latest paperbacks or anything like that. The only paperbacks I had, or, I had Penguins, and I would sell Penguins, or the Oxford World Classics, things like that. and mostly just Greek and Roman, like the classics. So I still concentrated on selling online catalogs. I printed up catalogs into areas probably every couple months, and I expanded going to conferences, and that was, I would say, 90% of my sales. But I sort of figured, well, I needed somewhere to store the books anyway, and at least this way, I paid rent. I got rid of my the flat. I had the 3-bedroom apartment, and I had a little more storage. But I think I was paying probably about similar in total for rent. So I figured, well, I got the best of both worlds. I do have a shop here; people can come in, and it eventually will work out. That was my hope. I'm getting to the answer of the question of why I came to the UK. Bear with me. Now, few things happen. I think if the timeline I remember exactly. Uh, well, there was an anthrax scare in the U.S. where somebody was posting and mailing things with anthrax in. So right there, my catalog and online sales plummeted. And then 9/11 happened, and they plummeted more. Like, it went from me selling 100 and some books per week to literally a dozen or two within a couple weeks. So it plummeted very, very quickly. And I never recovered from it. So I decided to take a break. I put everything in storage. I came to the UK. And I came with the plan of, well, let's look around to see about looking for a job in a bookshop. So I had some really sort of tentative offers. So I decided, yeah, I'm going to do this. So I went back, liquidated everything, came here, and things didn't work out. Bookstore wise, they just said I didn't have UK work experience in book selling. So, but I still was determined to stay, and now it's 15 years later. It's coming up to 15 years in a week or so. On November 10th will be my 15th anniversary here in the UK of landing. But that's how I came to the UK, and I now have permanent residency, so I'm all set. So anyway, that's the last of the questions, and I want to thank everybody who's put questions in for this, and I want to thank everybody, all my subscribers. And I'm just, as I say, I started in January, so I'm just really, really happy that I've got 500 subscribers in, what is that? Yes, 7, 8 months, 8 months, 9 months, 8 months. I'm just amazed at how that has happened, and people want to listen to what I have to prattle on about. So, so I will stop prattling at the moment, and I hope everybody has the rest of a great weekend and what's left of it. And I will see you next time, Booktube. Take care.